Hi, I'm Molly and you're watching Reads with Tea, my YouTube channel where I drink tea and read books and talk about them. So if you like tea and you like books, stick around and hopefully we'll have some fun. Cheers! Hello, welcome if you're new, or welcome back if you've watched a video before. Thank you for joining. If you're wondering, yes, I am wearing overalls. They're really fun. I feel like I'm living my Mamma Mia dream. But that's not why you're here. You're here to talk about books. Hopefully you're here to talk about this book, Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. I don't know. Yeah, there you go. This is the first book in the Infernal Devices, which is a Shadowhunters series. So yes, I am back on my Shadowhunters bullshit, and I'm so excited to talk to you about this book. If you haven't read any of the Shadowhunters books before, I'll give you like just a little taste of what to expect. So the Shadowhunters are half human, half angels, and their job is to hunt the demons of the world. So of the shadow world, and the shadow world is like Shadowhunters, warlocks, vampires, werewolves, fairies, like all those magical creatures. So they protect them from demons, and then they also protect like mundanes, humans, from demons as well. And that's the whole thing. And then there's some romance in them, there's action, there's mystery. It's a good time. So if you haven't read them, pick up your first book. I would not recommend reading this one first. I think the proper reading order is to read the first 3 Mortal Instruments books and then this one, but as always, I'm going to link a little Epic Reads recommended reading order in the description below, so you can check that out if you want to start reading some Shadowhunter books. And if you want to know what this book specifically is about, so this book takes place in 1878 in London, so you know, if you love a good period piece, we got that for you. And it follows the character Tessa Gray, who's 16. She's moving from New York to London to meet up with her brother, who moved to London to find a job. She was living with her aunt before, because her aunt was her guardian after her parents died in a carriage accident. And then her aunt suddenly passes, so she has to go live with her brother, who's her only like living relative. So she gets to London, and her brother's supposed to meet her at, you know, the boat landing place, like the dock. Her brother's supposed to meet her at the dock, and he doesn't show up, and instead these like creepy people show up and they're like, we'll take you to your brother, and I'm like, no, don't go with them. But then she goes with them, and she gets basically pushed into the Shadowhunter world, and she's trying to figure out what happened to her brother, and there's some other mysteries going on, and it's just a really good time. So I recommend. And if you like romance, if you like action, if you like mystery, you're gonna love this. So 10 out of 10 recommend. And that's all like the non-spoilery part I can give away. So if you continue watching, you will get spoilers. So this is your warning. So if you would like to read this and not get spoiled, please stop watching and click an exit button somewhere on your screen. So I'm hoping if you're still with me, then you've read Clockwork Angel. And I want to do like a little disclosure thing up front. I have spoilers for this book, and I have them because I read the books in the wrong order. And I am mad at myself for it. Like, please don't be mad at me. I promise I'm mad enough for the both of us. So I read the Mortal Instruments in high school, so like 6 years ago. And then I just read The Dark Artifices this year. So I know some of the stuff that happens that I'm not supposed to know while reading this. So yeah, I mean, that wasn't great, but regardless of me already having spoiled the series kind of for myself, I really do love this book. I understand why people are like, Infernal Devices is the best Shadowhunters series, and I've only read the first book, and I already am like, I think I agree. Is it because it takes place in the 1800s, in the late 1800s in London? Like, maybe. Is it because Tessa Gray is kind of incredible and also loves books? Also maybe. Is it because there are two really beautiful love interests? Maybe, except I don't usually like love triangles, so I'm still conflicted on that. But anyways, so good. Okay, let's talk about Tessa Gray. Like, when was the moment that you fell in love with Tessa Gray? Because when I started the book, I wasn't sure if I was going to like her. And it was because she got into the carriage with the Dark Sisters, and you know, I've been watching a lot of Criminal Minds recently, so I'm just a little paranoid. And the second that was all happening, I was like screaming at the book, like, don't do it, don't go with them. This is a bad idea, like, this is how girls get murdered. And then she went with them, and I was like, no, Tessa. But you know, she really started to grow on me. Like, when she hit Will with the pitcher inside, like, the Dark Sisters' house, I was like, okay, she's getting better. And then when she, like, discussed her undying love for books, I was like, oh, me too. So I was like, okay, she's cool, I like her, we're good. But my favorite Tessa Gray moment was on page 117. Let me find it. Okay, page 117, where Will's, like, talking across her to Jem, and Tessa says, if you keep seeing Six-Fingered Nigel like this, he'll expect you to declare your intentions. And then Jem chokes on his tea. And that, in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, Tessa Gray is possibly my favorite Shadowhunters female leading role girl person. I love her. Not to be dramatic, but I would die for Tessa Gray, as I think would Jem and Will. Speaking of Jem and Will, we're gonna segue. So the Jem and Will love triangle I don't love, because I don't like when there's a love triangle and it's like brothers or people who like love each other or like best friends. I don't like when they're pitted against each other, so I'm a little nervous to see how this goes. And also, again, because I read the series in the wrong order, I kind of know what happens, and I don't know how I feel about everything yet. First of all, I'm mad at Will right now because he was a total dick to Tessa at the end of the book. And I know everyone's like, oh my god, Will's my favorite character, like, I love Will, he's my, like, one and only book boyfriend. So I feel like his character's going to get better, and that he's going to have some, like, tragic backstory where I'm like, oh, okay, I understand why he did what he did. But right now, I don't understand why he did what he did, and I'm mad about it. And Jem's just been so nice to Tessa, but the problem is right now I don't see anything happening between them, because I don't think Tessa sees Jem in that way. And also because I think Sophie likes Jem, and I want good things for Sophie. I feel bad for her. I think that she needs to have some good things happening in the next few books. And if she ends up getting killed off, I think I'm just gonna be really mad, so we'll see what happens. Anyways, back to Will. So I'm mad at him, but also there was such a good moment at the end of the book when, like, Will thinks that Tessa's dead, and then she's not dead, and then they hug, and then he's, like, looking at her, and he's in love with her, and he's looking at her, and he knows that the way he's looking at her, she must know that he's in love with her, but he's not gonna say it. And my heart just did, like, the swelling, like, like, tugging at the heartstrings moment that I love. I love when books make me feel like that, like, heart-tugging emotion. It really just gets me every time. So, you know, I had such high hopes for Will and, like, their kiss, and Tessa had, like, her first kiss with him, and I thought that was really cute. And then you have, like, that little moment where they're, like, Jem and Will are leaving, and then Jem goes to kiss Tessa's hand, and then it, like, describes Will's hand, like, curling up into a fist, and he's, like, white-knuckling it. And I just love that imagery so much, because it reminds me of the Pride and Prejudice scene where they, like, zoom in on Mr. Darcy's hand, and he's, like, doing the hand flex. Girls who love Pride and Prejudice, 2005, directed by Joe Wright, will know what I'm talking about. But that scene I really loved, and I want Will and Tessa to end up together, but not if Will is going to be a douchebag, you know? You get it? And I love Jem. Like, Jem's such a little sweetie right now, and I want good things for him too. And I don't want him to end up heartbroken. And again, I don't want there to be, like, a rift between Will and Jem, because I think, like, they have such a nice little bond, and Will's, like, rowdy, and Jem's, like, the calm, cool, collected one, and I love it. Oh, and speaking of other characters I love, let's talk about Magnus Bane. Not that he's underappreciated, because I feel like Shadowhunter, like, diehard fans love him and appreciate him to his full extent. But I feel like people who are new to the fandom, you know, like if you've just read The Mortal Instruments for the first time, you don't love Magnus as much as you should, but the more you read all these series, you're like, wow, everyone would be so dead so fast without Magnus Bane. And I love him, and I love this scene where they're at, like, the vampire pandemonium club, whatever, and Magnus just describes that his, like, dream person has dark black hair and blue eyes, and I'm like, he just described Alec, and Alec hasn't even been born yet, and he described him, and I melted, like, a little bit inside. Just a little part of me was like, you know? So I'm really hoping that we see more of Magnus, just because I love him. Oh, and also, okay, if you have read The Dark Artifices, if you haven't, just, like, plug your ears for a hot 10 seconds. It makes sense now, like, the scene at the beginning of Queen of Air and Darkness, where, Julian's going to Magnus, and then Magnus, like, says something to him. I forget what he says. And then he's like, oh, I was thinking of another, dark-haired, blue-eyed boy coming to me from the rain, and I was like, ah, and then I read this, and I read the end, and I was like, oh, I see the symmetry now. It makes sense. So I appreciate that. But yeah, I hope we see more of Magnus, just because I love him, and I love reading about him and his backstory and his little, like, I like reading about his character. Okay, so speaking of other characters, let's talk about side characters. I really want to see more of Charlotte and Henry's relationship, because I kind of want to see if they really do love each other, or, like Jessamine said, if it's more of, like, they married each other as a, like, strategic alliance, like a power dynamic kind of thing. Because I hope that they really do love each other, and I do want to see more of them, and I like them. I think that they're cute. And I like the dynamic of, like, the husband and wife during the late 19th century, where the wife is, like, the one in charge, and the husband just kind of, like, lets her do her thing. Like, I love that. So yeah, I want to see more of them. Jessamine, I don't know if I like her. I feel bad for her. I feel bad that her parents died, and that she never wanted to be a shadow hunter like that. That sucks. I'm sorry. But she's also just kind of annoying, so I'm like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. And as I said, Sophie, I want the best for Sophie. Nate sucks. He's the worst. And you know, when I started reading this, like, when I read the part that Nate had, like, written the note to Tessa, and Tessa was like, well, it's in his handwriting, and he's the only one who calls me this, so it must have been from him. At that moment, I was like, okay, Nate's either in on it, or someone just, like, must have copied his handwriting or something. Like, I was like, he's either dead or he's in on it. But then we got to the scene where he was being held at the Pandemonium Club, and the vampires were gonna suck his blood, so I was like, okay, maybe he's not in on it. But no, I should have gone with my instincts, because he was in on it, and I'm mad at him. Actually, I'm not even mad at him. He just sucks as a person. Like, he just, not that I wish that he dies, but I hope, like, bad things happen to him. Not, like, death, not, like, really bad, but, like, I hope he ends up in, is it the Silent City? Right, the Silent City is, like, the equivalent of jail. I hope he ends up in the Silent City. The other thing that I really like about Cassandra Clare is I feel like she's good at doing not, like, plot twists exactly, but plot turns, where you're like, okay, I think it's going one way, and then it kind of, like, angles in a different way, but it's not, like, a full twist, because you kind of see it coming. I felt that way about Mortmain being the Magister, because I didn't feel like it made sense for De Quincey to be the Magister, because whenever people were like, is he the Magister, no one would really give a solid answer, and I was like, that's suspicious. But I didn't expect it to be Mortmain, and I don't know why. I feel like I should have seen that coming. But also what I really loved about this book is it left off on, like, a kind of cliffhanger, because everything's resolved for now, well, except for the fact that they stole the box. Paraxis? Paraxis. Did I say that right? Pyrxix. Pyx. Pix. Pisixis. How do I pronounce this? Pixis. Well, yeah, not everything's resolved because they got the pick six? They got the pick six box, so that's not resolved. And also, you know, like, Mortmain Nate disappeared. Also not great. But, like, for now, everyone's okay. Like, Will's okay, with the exception of him being a douchebag. Jem's okay in the sense that he's, like, the same as he's been throughout the story. And Tessa's okay in the sense that she's alive. So everyone's, like, okay, which I appreciate, because you're not left on one of those cliffhangers like, oh, is my favorite character dead? But you still have all these questions. Like, for example, some of my questions. What happened to Tessa's parents? Like, what is Tessa? Is she actually a warlock? Because I know they said that she is a warlock, but then they, like, don't know how she became a warlock, so I want to know more about Tessa's background. I want to know more about Will's background. I want to know why he's being such a douche. I want to know, like, what's the Pixis? I don't know how to say it, but I want to know what's in the box. You know, is it like Pandora's box? Like, is something bad gonna happen? I want to know how Mortmain got his powers. There's so much I want to know. So I appreciate that. I like when you're left wondering, not in like a standalone book, but in a series. When you're like, huh, what's gonna happen next? I don't know. I'm excited about it though. I want to know what happens next, so I'm gonna have to, I guess, just go read the second book, and then I'll do another one of these for the next one. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day, night, early morning, mid-afternoon, whatever time it is. I hope you have a great one.